This is Deadpool Negative, and I'm here with the interesting review of a book. I think that literally, it's one of the few times I can actually say out loud, literally, who was this for? And I'm going to start with a little kind of an ironic thing. That I remember back in 2002 when the number one selling comic was Transformers. That's right. All this has happened before, and all this will happen again. The kind of eventually disastrous Pat Lee stewardship of Transformers comics. And there was a book, a robot themed book by um, creators Jay Torres and Mike Norton. I believe it was Jason the Argonauts themed. I can't quite recall the title, but I was actually looking forward to it. You know, even though I think Jay Torres basically wrote kid stuff, which will become important later in this conversation. Until I read a quote from the editor of that book, James Lucas Jones, that was, I can't remember the exact quote. It was just this snarky, like, well, some of you make this nostalgia teen, blah, 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 but here's something new. And I just rolled my eyes and went, you don't have to pit them against each other, asshole. Um, and I don't remember, but I don't think I ever read the book, and it's probably out of print, and I feel bad for being immature enough. But I also feel kind of annoyed because you didn't have to like pick a fight. That was the problem back then. All you guys did was pick fights. And now we're in this situation because 22 years after that book came out, what is Oni Press publishing? The Nacellverse. What is the Nacellverse, you ask? It is, deep breath, a shared universe, a comic book shared universe featuring toy properties RoboForce, toy and cartoon properties, I should say, RoboForce, Biker Mice from Mars, Sectars, Warriors, and Beyond, Power Lords, and the Great Garloo. The what, the what, the what, the what, and the what? Okay. Here, I'm going to this. This is me reading the site, Building Our Universe. Oh, yeah, and there's Cowboys of Moo Mesa in there. I keep forgetting that. So it's over the last 3 years, we've acquired many beloved IPs from decades past with the goal of breathing new life into these characters and creating a cohesive universe of stories that will interconnect each narrative while still highlighting their unique personalities and strengths. Oh, I should also note from when James Lucas Jones isn't in Oni Press anymore. Neither is Jamie S. Rich. And even though Oni put out very good comics when they were in charge, they were also I also found the Republican personas to be kind of annoying, and it's kind of almost weirdly. I think they'd be turning over in their graves if they knew Oni was publishing these days, and neither of them are dead. Although Jamie Rich is in charge of IDW now, he might as well be dead. Um, anyway, now that's out of my system. Um, the plan is to build this universe, publish RoboForce, Biker Bites from Mars, Sectars, Great Garloo, Cowboys, and Power Lords comics. Now, this has some people you've heard of, like Dwayne Johnson and Danny Garcia are producing a RoboForce animated series, and Ryan Reynolds is producing a proposed Biker Mice from Mars animated series, though neither of them seem to be on the schedule. And the only evidence of the RoboForce animated series I can find is the trailer. Um, where do I start with this? It's like the only one of these I could barely recall. Well, I remember Sectars because Marvel published a book, and I remember Power Lords because I'm one of those guys who thought Michael Fleischer was a good writer. Um, but Michael Myers from Mars is probably the best known of these properties. And my brother did have a RoboForce figure, one. There was a proposed RoboForce cartoon. They never got past the pilot stage. So I mean, it's like we're talking like 40-year-old properties. Like Biker Mice from Mars already had a revival. I don't like it's not even like who is this? I honestly, who is this for? Who remembers these? How are these appealing to kids today? I mean, and first of all, this is Oni Press, a company that doesn't have much penetration outside the direct market, except for bookstores. And like this is a $6 one shot. So why did I pick it up? Well, Melissa Flores wrote it, and Melissa Flores isn't the greatest writer in the world, but she understands how to write decent kids adventure comics. Like, I mean, her Spider-Gwen isn't particularly deep, but I think her Power Rangers work is, for Power Rangers comics, pretty good. And here she's charged with making this a shared universe. And to her credit, she has a good entry point, the Great Garloo, which is apparently an action figure from the 60s. And this is a guy who left his home planet to look for work, discovers it's been destroyed in a environmental disaster, and this is not followed up on. This is like he's just wandering the universe because his family's gone, his whole planet's gone. He'd accidentally hurt someone, and he's broken out by a character. He's broken out of jail by a character who is obviously a con man. And it's just like this guy, because he's alone, he hooks up with this traitor. He's identified as a traitor, but the character is pretty much obvious. Lepa. He's obviously a con man from the start. And so what happens is basically Garloo and Lepa sort of tour the aspects in the Nacellverse. They run into the Power Lords. They go to the Sectar's planet. They go to the Mars, where they meet the biker Mars from Mars, and eventually they wind up on Earth, where the RoboForce guys are. And this didn't bother me too. This kind of bothered me, but it was more like the character. Also the Cowboys of Mumesa are on Earth, but they're just barely mentioned here, since those are both Earth-based properties, and eventually the biker mice from Mars will find their way back to Earth. At least I assume these aren't in continuity with the original properties, just reboots. Like, for one thing, the RoboForce is their first, but they don't clearly establish what the premise of RoboForce is. You have to look that up on the site, because it's really the Great Garloo story, and it's a simple kid story of like loneliness and meeting new people and interacting with them. And at the end, he realizes Lepa is a bad guy and realizes he has the strength and power to like cut Lepa out of his life. And it's Flores understands the rhythms of writing kids stuff. It's just that there's outside of like Garloo's arc is pretty much resolved at the end of these. He ends up in a happy place at the end. There's just no hook. There's no hook for these other properties, like the Power Lords. They look neat. I mean, Sectars, that's a whole thing, but you really don't get spend enough time with them. Biker Mice from Mars, again, I'm old enough to remember this stuff, and I just wasn't into it back then. I mean, it seems cruel to say they're scraping the bottom of the barrel, but it does feel that way. Even though there are some talented people at least producing this. One of the people involved in this is doing a comic I like. Brian Volk-Weiss is in charge of some of the Nacellverse, and he's co-writing the Aliens What If comic I've been talking about and really enjoying. To his credit. But we don't know if these RoboForce and Biker Mice from Mars cartoons are actually happening. I mean, we're getting republished action figures of Garloo and Sectars and the Biker Mice, I assume. There's just nothing here. I could see myself giving this to one of my nieces or my nephew when he gets older to read more complex stuff, but I don't know. It seems to be trading on nostalgia for something that I just don't think is ready for it. And there's also talented. The artwork appears pretty good. They got Francis Portela, Diogenes, Neves, people I've actually heard of, and I don't know. It's not making me angry, but it's making me frustrated. It's just frustrated because there's this seems to be a lot of energy behind this, and it just doesn't grab me. I mean, obviously, am I even the audience for this? But I wanted to check it out because I was curious. It's just what bothered me the most is they don't clearly establish what the deal with RoboForce is, and that's the next comic that's coming out. And Diogenes is a good artist, and Flores is a good kids writer. But again, I don't really have time in my head, or room in my head for kid stuff. I'm not sure I'm the audience for something like this, but if I'm not the audience, because I'm one of the few people old enough to remember these properties, then who is the audience? That's the confusing thing. Beloved IPs, like, does anybody really care about the Cowboys of Moo Mesa? Or, but then again, it's like, I feel bad. It's weird because I feel bad for dumping on it because there's like, I mean, the design of this RoboForce series, if it happens, looks terrific. I mean, the animation's kind of neat. It's a, but it again, it's kid stuff. I mean, I can watch kid stuff, but do I need kid stuff? No. So, I mean, again, it's not a bad comic. It's not a great comic. It's just kind of there. And in this market, just kind of there isn't really what works. What it there needs to be something more than that. And despite the talent involved, it just wasn't there. I mean, again, I would give this to a kid. It's got some nice life lessons. It's about moving on, but it just doesn't actually cohere into something like, oh, I can't wait to check out RoboForce or Biker Mice from Mars or Sectars or Power Lords or Great Garloo. Outside of Garloo, you don't get the full story of all these characters, or the Cowboys of Moo Mesa, which they still don't get. I mean, I didn't watch those cartoons, even though when I was old enough to. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. Subscribe, like, and subscribe, and I'll be back with more stuff. Bye.